We had several problems. It was wired wrong, it didn't have those loops cut, keyed, and cranking 12-volt power. Now we will see if we get a sparkle. Go right ahead, sir. It's been a minute or 8 since I worked on Dale. That's because racing season started. Now I need to race Dale. I'm glad to be back. I'm also kind of like overwhelmed. So let's get busy and blah, 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 gaskets and carburetors and yada, yada, yada. Brought this crack pipe with me, so I'm going to go ahead and see if the crack pipe fits. We're going to pretend that you're going to stay there. You're not. It's shaped like a hexagon, so you can put a wrench on it and keep turning it. But it's in there. It does turn. The threads seem to be the right size, so that's good. We've got that half sorted. Okay, I'm moving on. We're looking at the choke cable now. There's our choke. And we got to run it from the inside here. I got this old switch here, which was used to be used for demobilization. Cut battery power or something, or it was a fuel pump switch. I'm not sure what it was, but it doesn't do anything anymore. So we're going to take that switch out of there and we're going to put the choke through there, which is probably where a factory choke would have been, either here or there. And then there's a hole into the firewall right back there. Can you see it? Yeah, there it is. You see it? We're gonna put that cable right out through there. Wait a minute. Holy moly! There it is! It'll run to the carburetors right over here. Looks like we could cut the length down quite a bit too. I think maybe I could put a nice bracket along the back side of the valve cover would be good to hold this and the throttle cable. That would look pretty. I'm gonna tighten down the nut on the puller in there, and then we should have a working choke cable. So that is done. And right now, of course, we'll pull out infinitely because it's not attached to anything on the other end, but we have a choke cable, even has an appropriate choke symbol on it, if you can see that. Chosimba, chosen one. Okay, so now that we're done with the choke cable, which, done is a relative term, we still have to actually put the carburetors on to hook up the choke cable, but it's installed. I'm gonna go back to the more difficult problem of the throttle cable. There used to be a linkage that came off of the pedal, drove a linkage up that would make a rod rotate this direction, and that's what would work the throttle on the old carburetor that used to sit on this side of the engine. Now our carburetors are over here on this side of the engine, and there aren't really linkages made to go from that side to the other side. I suppose I could make one up. I don't know much about doing that, and the cable is a simpler solution to that, and less points of failure too, so that'll be good. Problem is, this car is obviously set up for the linkage, not set up to pull a cable in, such that the gas pedal, it would push up, you push down the gas pedal and that would push up this linkage right here. And that's gonna push up the linkage inside the firewall. That's not gonna work for pulling on a cable. That's just gonna push a cable. So we need to pull on the cable, and it'd be nice if we could just like flip this sucker around and make that, and that doesn't work. None of that works. So the solution that the guys over at Speed Academy did with their Celica was they found a later model vehicle's gas pedal that seemed like it would work and fit, and that used a throttle cable. So I was like, I can do the same. I've had lots of parts cars. Unfortunately, I don't have any parts cars at the moment, but Miles owned an AE92 GTS that we thought we were going to make his first car. It did not want to be his first car. It's very rusty underneath. So the car got sold, and it got sold to Sean, who just lives 5 minutes away from here. And Sean's just going to use the car for parts as well, just the motor and some other things. So I thought, I wonder if he's going to use that gas pedal. So I just asked him. He said he was not, was able to get the gas pedal assembly. Now, a couple of differences. This one mounts on the right side of the pedal versus the other one, original one, which mounts on the Yeah, so this goes on the left side of the pedal. There's lots of room up in there for this pedal. It's going to take some modification, and like it's got this isolator on it. I might end up cutting that off, and maybe we end up, you know, bringing the overall size down and just keeping that nice tab there for running the end of the cable through. But you know, this is a good start. You're not going to be able to see really any of that if I try to film it. So we're probably going to maybe time lapse it or something like that. You'll just see my bald head, you know, down there working on stuff, and maybe we'll be able to get a decent shot or two of it actually going in. But I'm more than likely going to end up having to not use factory bolt holes to mount this up. And in fact, I think it's actually gonna have to stand off from the firewall. So there may be some fabrication involved that we could go over. It's goofy. I don't want to be doing any of this, but I have to be able to pull a cable. And this is how I think I'm gonna do it. You got a better idea? You know, too late. This is how I'm doing it. It looks like a standard gas pedal. You press the brake, you could roll the foot over on it. I'm not sure how deep though. It might need to come up a little bit more. But that's adjustment for later. For now, I have a gas pedal that will pull a cable, so let's put a cable on it. Up there somewhere ought to be the fitting for the cable. And I see it. It's barely poking through there. I got to get a nut on that. If you ever want to know how to tighten up these through bolts, whatever you call these things, well, bolt, there's threads on the other side. Get yourself a wrench that fits, jam it up against something, and on the other side, you know, get yourself the mother of all extensions with a deep well socket and stick her up in there and let her have it. This is as far as I've gotten, which is, you know, pretty good. On the other end of this cable is a pedal that the throttle cable connects to, kind of. I don't really have a factory style, you know, connector to meet up to that factory style. You join me with dumbness already in progress. I'm attempting to once again properly position the gas pedal. As you can see from up here, or you can't, you can hear though, it's rubbing on the speedometer cable. So it is my job at the current point in time to make sure that that does not happen. The speedometer cable is there where that open hole in the firewall is. Throttle cable is there. I want to move the speedometer cable down to where the throttle used to come through, which is down much further, and that'll get the cable away from the pedal mechanism entirely. So that's my aim, my goal. That's the simplest solution here, I think, but speedometer cables are kind of a pain in the ass. Anyway, I'm going to keep at it. Try to remove that end over there and see if I can slip this whole thing through. And then that would be ideal. If not, then the cluster's got to come out. So I looked at the business end of the cable and realized that that was going to be too hard to take that out. So I was like, well, I'm going to do that dash anyway. So let me go ahead and see what it takes to take that dash out. And started in digging at it, had to go get the dash that I want to put in so I could take a look at it, see where everything's attached. And it turns out that there are 4 screws in the bottom of the dash unit that I think are covered up. Ooh, maybe they're up through that hole there. Look at that. I knew it was up there. Okay, there's one. That don't belong up here. It belonged down there. I had a hell of a time getting all the plugs off the back. I ended up having to take the steering column down and move the steering wheel out of the way so I could tilt the binnacle just so I could get everything out of it. Lots of little plugs, some nuts on the back of the connectors for the voltmeter, and then the really weird plug on the light switch on the left-hand side. And yeah, after all of that, we have this old dash out. All right, this is the guy right here. Let's just start yanking, huh? Yeah, that's gonna work. Why not just pull? Hey, look at that. And now, if you please, we'll just put you right back in that hole there. I know one thing that we're gonna get immediately. since all that cable's out of there, is we're gonna get a nice smooth motion on our gas pedal. So that's sick. Obviously, I'm left without a dash. What to do about that? We may just have to go out with the old and in with the new. It looks way better without that wood grain. I did that a long time ago. This is out of my 73 Celica, and I took the time to heat up and remove all that wood grain. We're gonna have all new heater controls, and they're gonna work properly, and then the radio is still there, which I like a lot. It's probably not going to work, and I don't really care that it doesn't work, but it looks the part, and I'll put in some Bluetooth or something later on. I accomplished something today. Demolition is always accomplishment. Moved the speedo cable, and that's not interfering with the gas pedal anymore, which was the goal in the first place. So I feel pretty good about it. Okay, me and Sam are here in the car, and what I've got here is this aftermarket throttle cable, which we don't really care at all what's on the end of it there. We just needed to stop this rubber piece. And then this part is going to clip into the AE92 Corolla gas pedal, and I just have to feed the wire back through the hole now, and then we'll have pretty good puller on the gas pedal side. Honestly, it's not so bad down here. I mean, I don't want to stay for a weekend or anything, but, you know, it's manageable for about 6 seconds. Now I've lost the damn throttle cable. How do you lose the whole cable? Oh, it hurts so bad. This is impossible. Listen, I'm not even lying. I got it. I got it here. It's going. Look at it. You can't see it. In it goes. Oof. Oof. What are we woofing at, Sam? Stop it. Stop it. I'm trying to do a video here. What's that you say? You say you don't believe me. That it's actually hooked up. Well, yeah, that's what it looks like. It's jank. But I don't think it's going to hit anything. That wiring harness behind it is a little bit ominous to me. So I'm going to try to figure out how to get that up and out of the way. I think that won't be too hard. For now, though, I'm going to call that, you know, done-ish. He thinks we're going to leave. But we're not yet. You're still a prisoner. You're still my prisoner. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. This bench is no good. Bothering me. So I'm going to clean it off, and I'll talk a little bit. The throttle cable bracket situation is going to be interesting. I'm going to look at some pictures. You can look along, too. Here's a picture here of one, and here's another picture of a different one. And maybe here's another one. Hopefully I have that many reference images. I think I'll probably use this style. I'm not sure which style it is that you're looking at the moment, but that's the one that I'm going to use. And I'll have to make it out of some metal and such. I'm going to bolt it here and have it come out to here with the right angle bent down to there. So it should come whoop, whoop, whoop. Oh. This is the guy. That's going to be the guy right there. Let's make something out of cardboard, and then we'll draw it up on that. We'll cut it out and bend it and grind it down and make it good. Oh, flimsiness check? Yeah, it's flimsy. But, you know, we're pulling on a cable, right? So all it's going to do is pull that way. I mean, I'm not worried about the bend as much as I am worried about up here. This part's flexing more than the bend is, so maybe I need to brace it across the top somehow. But, like, the force required to pull the throttle mechanism is not all that bad. And we're dead on in line with the ball, so I feel real good about that. Hey now, it's getting a little gloomy outside. I think we got storms coming this way. And there's one guy in here that he don't like the thunders, not at all. So we're gonna go ahead and take care of business and do what we gotta do to get out of here today and come back and finish this soon. What is next? Water pump's on the way. MSD is still a thing. Rear head water fitting is in there. So this is good. None of this is wiping off. Throttle cable, carbs. That looks like how Calvin would write Gross. I'm just going to go ahead and put on Calvin and Hobbes. Any Calvin and Hobbes fans out there? Get rid of slimy girls. Gross. That was him and Hobbes' club against girls. Mainly just Susie. Anyway, plug wires. Well, these two go together. The old plug wires and the MSD. And then we got a water pump on the way. Oh yeah, there's a fuel T that I need to put in for the return. Fuel T. The throttle cable is going to require an 8mm end ball. That's really tiny. Carbs plus cable bracket. All right. I'm done for the day. This video is stupid. All videos are stupid. Videos are dumb. Why am I still pointing that thing at myself and turning it on while I'm doing this? Tell me why in the comments, please. Did you make it this far into this video for me to ask you if you enjoy it? If you have, please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I find it hard enough just to work on the car most days, let alone make a video. You know. I don't need to tell you, because I've told you millions of times. I wanted to get a piece of footage here to document my removal of this balance bar that is wholly unnecessary. Whoops. No. And that washer. Because the balance bar does nothing with my carburetors. Let's have a look. So you can see the holes there that lead up into the balance bar, and that's what would balance the air between the two carburetors if the carburetor itself had a concession for the balance bar. But these don't. These carburetors clearly don't match this head and intake manifold. So I wasted a lot of time on this balance bar, and I'm not going to have a balance bar in the car. And right now it's RTV'd to the intake, which is pretty cool. The problem with not having a balance bar, though, is that then I lose my mount for the bracket that I just made. But all of that is garbage, and it looks like garbage, and I don't need it. So now what? So here's how it sits. I mean, it's not tightened down yet, but here's how it sits on the new extremely long intake manifold studs that I installed while you weren't looking. And I'll get the other carb on, and then we can start working on the fabrication of the new and improved throttle cable bracket. It's going to go out here, be mounted off of the corners of these things. You know, names are escaping me, words are hard, but let's just keep working. I'm starting the process of figuring out this bracket. I'm going to copy almost exactly a bracket that I saw in Steph's video about his 18RG Celica, also a 72, I might add. And he made a nice little triangle bracket. I'll put a clip of that in here. That's exactly what I'm going to make. He made his look like out of aluminum, put a nice hole in the middle of it. I'm not going to be able to make it all that fancy, but I am going to connect it on the back side of these flanges and then have it come up to a peak right about here, and then that will give me my hole to put the throttle cable through and pull that lever. First we'll do a little bit of CAD, cardboard aided design, and then we'll cut it out the way we need to, and then we'll transfer that to whatever metal I can find. All right, here it comes, and I messed it all up. It's going to be utter garbage. I did it. I made a bracket. Definitely in the way of the fuel lines. Gonna have to change how the fuel lines are run. Maybe they'll come down here and go across there. I don't know, but you know, for right now, I'm just so happy that this throttle cable works. The pedal has plenty of spring back, and I'm real happy. It's taken a lot to get here. This is my third attempt at making this bracket right here. This one is made out of aluminum that my buddy Kel got for me. Thank you, Kel. I cut it. I shaped it with a flap disc. I bent it using the propane torch to heat it up. I didn't get video of any of that because I just wanted to get it done. And here it is. There it is. Suck it, Steph Papadakis. Huh? I don't need your help. I made my own. Even though it will take some adjustment, I want to do this. I want to do that so bad. Yes! What's this? And cable bracket? Well, and that, they're all gonna come off again, I'm sure, but, you know. Wowzers. Would you look at them? Tonight, I'm also gonna tackle that choke and get that done. And then I'm probably gonna move on to the MSD and try to figure out how to plug it in. Ryan might come over. I'm not sure if he's gonna have time tonight, but it'd be awesome to see him and to have his help wiring up some electrical signals from one place to another. All right, there's a lot of extra wires and bits hanging around here, but I'm here to tell you that thing is finally up on this firewall. And I got it installed with riv nuts on, well, let's say 3 of the 4 corners. That one didn't quite make it. Trying to get this thing in place with the right kind of template and all the angles and curves and whatnot that are on the firewall was real tough, but you know, it's like Meatloaf said, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. Something like that. But there it is. 1 MSD digital 6AL and a bunch of wires ready to go to places. Where do they go? I have no idea. Well, I have some idea. All right, today's mission, a couple of missions on the Celica here. We're gonna put in a fuel T right here for the fuel return, and then we may wire up the MSD the rest of the way. Okay, so we put in the fuel T, and then inside here we got an upside down hood, and he's trying to find a place to put the new fuse box. The MSD and subsequently that gauge right there now both have fused 12-volt keyed power from this distribution block. We'll figure out where to mount it after we know that everything is working properly. Okay, so I think we have all the wires hooked up for the MSD now. We have a ground wire back there in the back. We got power and tack running over to their respective power and tack over there. And now what we need is actual power. That super start right there might actually have some juice. All right, I have attached the negative cable to the motor mount and to the wheel well here. I believe we have good connections there. I'm going to pick up the positive cable, put it on this terminal, and see if we start the fire. We're listening for the sounds of fire. We're looking for the signs of fire. So far, do not see fire. Nothing in here is on fire. Should I turn a key? That's going to be the real part of the test, isn't it? The key is now turned on. The gauge is not on. I'm pretty sure I have the 12-volt running to the fuse block at the moment, so that's a problem. Y'all, I have struggled and struggled and struggled to figure out why I had no 12-volt keyed power from this car. And you know, you got to look at a wiring diagram, you got to talk to some people, but you know what I did? I asked ChatGPT. I said, what could be in between my ignition switch and my battery? And you know what it said? It said older cars have ammeters, and sometimes those ammeters live in the circuit in between, and I'll be damned if I didn't see it in the wiring diagram earlier and went, that couldn't be it. But guess what? Yeah, listen to that. Look at that. I got power coming from my fused bus, the thing I've been trying to get working forever and ever. And all I had to do was wire up the damn ammeter to get my power back. People are going to lose their jobs to ChatGPT for sure. But when it comes to trying to figure out obscure problems like this, you can Google all you want and go through a billion different forums, or you can just ask people questions on Facebook and wait for them to respond. But I'd give ChatGPT a shot if I were you, because it could help your brain, you know, like reorganize, blah, 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 you know, like I'm just saying, if you're a mechanic, you know this stuff. If you're like me, you don't. Ask ChatGPT. It might spark something in your head and make you go the right direction. But hey, I got power now, which means I got power to an MSD. And if I turn that key a little bit more, it would rip that starter and things would happen. So, here we go. Hudson has been doing this job. He's been taking the wires that I bought that are for a Supra 2JZ and trying to fit them appropriately on the 18RG. As you can see, they go down in the well, and that's probably not good for them, but they were $34. The legitimate spark plug wires for the car are like $150 or more. So, super wires it is. All right, because we're about to test and see if we can make this thing run, first we got to see if it'll bump. So I'm going to make sure it is in neutral. It is in neutral. And the coil's disconnected, right? I pulled it off the distributor end, didn't I? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Okay, the starter bumps. Yeah, okay, here we go. Nothing? Yeah, sounds awful too. So, you know, the old distributor's not even clamped down at all. I don't even know what, you know, it should make some sort of sparkle. Whether it makes it at the right time or not, I guess, would be the question, right? Alright. Nothing. Here we go. Nope, nothing. Okay, take that, take this. This is the jumper wire. You think that's gonna ground?
Yeah.
Should do.
It should go to the easiest point, which is gonna be about there-ish. It's a half-inch away.
The MSD instructions say that you want to ground these 2 points together, and then you should see sparkles. Yep. I don't even need to do it again.
Golly.
We got sparkles. All right.
Definitely.
Do you see it?
Sparkles.
Must be the magnetic pickup is wrong or something. That's the next thing we need to check, is the distributor spinning. Watch it. All right. Verifying distributor turny turn. And she does absolutely turn. We got these wires from the Killer Corolla. We know that they work. We saw sparks come out of the distributor when we jumped it. We're gonna try this new spark plug. Keep going. No, nothing. And then the cap. The cap is like brand new. That can't be the problem. The rotor's brand new. I guess the only other problems could be electrical, and that would be from this magnetic pickup. Okay, we've been over here 3 times today, attempting to get the Pertronix digital points to electronic points. I don't know, I'm sure how you describe them, to send a signal back to the MSD that's inside the car so it'll fire the coil. We've tested the coil. The coil will fire, the MSD will fire the coil, but the problem was we first had it plugged in with these wires, which are for some other sort of setup, the purple and green wire, and flipped all the way to the back of the manual, and what do you know? It actually says right there, Pertronix igniter kit, because these are more like points. So we now have it wired up like this, but it still won't fire the coil and send through to the spark and give us any sparkles right there. I was watching a video, you know, because that's what you do when you can't figure stuff out, right? You watch videos. Well, all the video was doing was literally installing this thing by the book. And if I would have just read the book and known where I was going to begin with, I would have come upon this diagram right here that says that there's 2 little loops of wire here. It's normally set up for 8 cylinders. If you want a 6-cylinder, you just cut 1 loop. And if you want a 4-cylinder, you cut both loops. And we haven't cut any loops. So we're gonna, you know, cut some loops. Seems very scientific. Snip. 1. 2. All right, so now they're cut. So now we'll have spark, right?
Nope.
Not a thing. Of course it could not be that easy. We're really fighting this thing. What if we crank it while it's still flashing?
Let's try it.
Hold on. You know what's funny? Is that the light goes off when it's cranking.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, because sometimes you can have 12 volt when you're keyed, but not when you're cranking. Let's watch the gauge here. Does it do the same thing when we crank? It does. So we found a 12 volt cranking, or 12 volt keyed, but not a 12 volt cranking.
Brother.
So that's probably our problem right there.
Pretty stupid.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know crap about crap, you know. All right, now we have rewired a little bit. Instead of the keyed power that we had, we needed keyed and cranking power. So we found that, of course, out here at the distributor, not in the cockpit where I set up a fuse block and all of that stuff, but we've got it wired direct now, live and direct, 12 volt keyed and cranking power to the MSD and over to the distributor, and now we will see if we get a sparkle. Go right ahead, sir. Yes! Sparkles! Woo! Finally. You want to see it?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What a mess. So that was the whole problem, really. Well, part of the problem, we had several problems. It was wired wrong for the MSD. For the brains, it was... it didn't have those loops cut for the 4-cylinder, and then here we are, keyed and cranking 12-volt power, not just keyed power. It's not good enough, and but now we have the sparklation. So we got a lot of work to do to make this right. So we'll come back. Here, let me just. We'll come back to you whenever this is better and ready to like boom, bum, 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 bum. And that's coming. That's coming real soon.